Poliwrath is a Pokemon which hasn't seen much use, whether it be in Genetic Apex or the current Mythical Island era. I wanted to try put together a deck with Poliwrath and also using Druddigon, one of the newest Pokemon, to see if we can make something work. And I think I have done exactly that. Now guys, we put out new Pokemon Pocket content every single day, if not every second day. So please do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and hit the notification bell for the next one, and enjoy the video. So I've just called this deck Frogger because I couldn't think of a better name, to be honest. It runs 2 Poliwags, 2 Poliwhells, and 2 Poliwraths. We run the 2 Bruxish and 2 Druddigon. For supporters, we have 2 Misties, 2 Sabrinas, 2 Leafs, and 2 Oaks. And for items, we have 2 Pokeballs. As always, if you wanted to, you could drop a Sabrina or a Misty, put in Blue or Giovanni or whatever you want. But this is my preferred way to set this deck up. I don't think you really need the other 2 cards. Having 2 Misties to potentially get those energies down is really good. And Sabrina is always such a useful card. Leaf is definitely required because Leaf gives you the 2 retreat cross buff, which is perfect for both Druddigon, Poliwhirl, and Poliwrath. We have 3 high retreat cross mons, so Leaf is definitely quintessential here. Now, this is a deck that I run as multi-energy because all of the Pokemon in this deck have a mixture of water, fire, or colorless energies and are really easy to get going. So Poliwag and Poliwhirl both just need colorless energies, which means you could put your 2 fires in them and have no problems doing early damage. Bruxish requires only 1 water and 1 colorless, so the same kind of applies. Poliwrath also only needs the 1 water, so if you do get a couple of turns of fire in a row, as long as you get 1 water energy, Poliwrath is good and ready to go. And Druddigon is the same. He only requires the 1 colorless, 1 fire, and 1 water. So again, the multi-energy water fire does work well with Druddigon. Now, I need to talk about Druddigon because Druddigon is currently run in a lot of decks as nothing but a tank. People don't often run the energies required to get him going to use Dragon Claw. And with the current prevalence of things like Lumineon and Hitmonlee, I think that is a massive mistake. Having the ability to set Druddigon up on field is very, very important against things like Hitmonlee and Lumineon because they target the bench. And if Druddigon sits on your field doing nothing, in the time you're trying to set up your bench Pokemon, they will be taken out or heavily damaged by either one of those 2 Pokemon. So having the ability to set your Druddigon up in the active slot prevents their Hitmonlee or Lumineon from being able to attack it. All the while, if they want to do damage, they're wasting turns, they're wasting X speeds, they're wasting leaves, switching those mons out to get something on to do damage to Druddigon. So Druddigon has the ability Rough Skin, and Poliwrath has Counter Attack, which does the exact same thing. If Poliwrath takes damage while in the active position from the attacking Pokemon, it does 20 damage, and they both synergize very well with Bruxish. Bruxish, of course, has the attack second strike, which if they are pre-damaged, your opponent's Pokemon takes an additional 60 damage, meaning they take 70 in total, which is a decent whack in the early part of the game. I don't think I need to say too much more. I think this deck is pretty straightforward in how it functions, so let's get into some games. So game 1 here is actually against a Hitmonlee and Marshadow deck. And this is where having the multi-energy deck actually pays dividends, because in this situation, if you're running Druddigon as just a tank, Hitmonlee is going to do absolute carnage. But by having the ability to actually set up our Druddigon, we give ourselves the ability to actually take Hitmonlee out. So while they're worrying about our bench in our Poliwrath and our Bruxish, we can actually build Druddigon and take Hitmonlee out. Obviously, if Marshadow does go down, he's got that revenge outlet to kill us, but we can definitely work with this start and play around this. If we didn't set up Druddigon, this Hitmonlee would have an absolute field day because I would be stuck here trying to set up my Bruxish or my Poliwag really quickly and getting that onto the field, and that is just going to basically be an instant loss. So straight away, he got 30 damage into my Poliwag, but luckily enough, I drew into Poliwhirl and we have Poliwrath. So even if they do kick our Poliwhirl/Poliwrath a few times, the evolutions will keep it out of kill range, which is good because we do not want to lose a point early at all costs. Losing an early point against a Marshadow deck puts you in a very bad position, and it is really easy for them to win just by revenge spamming. So I Sabrinaed Farfetch'd on here to try and buy a turn, but he had an X speed, so Hitmonlee comes straight back on. He's going to go kicking into Poliwhirl, which is fine. He probably doesn't think that I have my Poliwrath, but luckily enough, we did start Poliwrath, so this is actually really, really good for us. So we're going to get our second energy into Druddigon. We're going to evo into Poliwrath, so we have a really high HP pool here. We have 90 HP. That's 3 turns for him to kill us with Hitmonlee. Unfortunately, it doesn't put Poliwrath out of revenge range, so we're kind of a little bit tired, but the best play here is just to start getting energies around in my other mons. Druddigon doesn't need to attack this turn, and I just want to pause this. My thinking here, right, if I put the energy into Druddigon and I kill Hitmonlee next turn, then what's going to happen is Marshadow comes on straight away, revenges me, and I have no mon set up to do any damage to Marshadow. But by putting the energy onto Bruxish here, what that means is that I can kill Hitmonlee next turn. It doesn't matter if it hits any of our bench Pokemon for 30 damage. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter if Farfetch'd comes in, anything like that. By doing that, it means I can kill Hitmonlee next turn, and then when Marshadow does come on and revenge my Druddigon, he takes 20 damage, and that means I can put Bruxish on because I've prepared Bruxish with energies, and Bruxish can then come in and just deal with Marshadow for me. We have a water energy coming up next, which means I do need to put this into Bruxish if we don't draw a water energy on the following turn. So my opponent has to think long and hard here about what they're going to do. I think if I had just gone straight into setting up my Druddy, they would have a field day. So I'm just going to put my Bruxish with the energy on field. This will delay me a turn if I don't manage to draw a leaf, but that's not a big deal. I will have to retreat back into Druddigon, which will burn an energy, but we do have the water energy coming up. This doesn't really help them because they're not putting damage into my Poliwrath or my other Bruxish. Realistically, I think maybe if he kept Hitmonlee on, that would have been a better play. That's fine. If Farfetch comes in, hits my Bruxish to 50. So we draw into Poliwag, which isn't ideal. And the best course of action here is potentially to get that second energy into Bruxish, especially because it is a water energy. But I did decide to put this into Druddigon for a reason, and one reason only. I don't think we're going to be attacking next turn anyway, so I'm going to switch Druddigon in, and I'm just not going to attack, because like I said, we'll be in the exact same position, RE. If we kill Farfetch, Marshadow comes in and one-shots Druddigon, and then nothing on my bench is ready to go. So realistically, they can't do anything here. All they can really do is bring Hitmonlee on potentially and start kicking down my mons again, or they can hit Druddigon with Farfetch for 40 damage, he takes 20, and it's kind of just like a bit like they're in a bit of a limbo. So he kicks into my Bruxish, but this is actually really good for me because I can see that water energy is coming up. So what that means is I can happily now kill this Hitmonlee, because if Marshadow does come in on the next turn, he has to hit me with Revenge. He takes rough skin damage and Bruxish can kill the Marshadow, and that puts me in a really strong position to win the game. So this was the exact thing I was trying to do, which was just wait until my Bruxish was ready to go. So the one thing I was thinking about here is what wouldn't be ideal is Sabrina, and that's exactly what they do, but I am covered. Poliwrath is the choice here. I did think about this. I thought logistically about how I'd make this work, but the best course of action is to sack the Poliwrath, because that will still get me the condition of hitting the Marshadow next turn with my full HP second strike Bruxish, and we can take the kill. The Poliwrath goes down, which is fine. All I need now is one more point following this next kill, so I'm going to kill this Marshadow 110%. And then we have our Druddigon on the bench, full HP, fully set up. It is hard to see how we lose. Now, I just drew into Sabrina as well, which is like chef's kiss, because you can probably anticipate that my opponent is going to put Aerodactyl on field, because Aerodactyl can't be one-shot by Druddigon unless I have a Giovanni. With Sabrina in Farfetch'd or Marshadow, my opponent is forced to concede, and that is the W. So this deck is kind of funny because the rough skin ×2 plus counter attack really gives you a decent amount of play against Marshadow if you can play the deck correctly. So match 2, we are straight into an Articuno and Greninja deck. We started with a pretty suboptimal hand because Bruxish as your lead Pokemon isn't very good, but we did get the Pokeball and Oak, so we're kind of covered. But of course, Bruxish takes 2 turns to really do damage. It needs 2 energies, so that's at least 2 turns, and then it takes another 2 turns. So it's like 4 turns for Bruxish to really get going is like not very good. So it is not the lead Pokemon you want, but at the same time, like if we had Druddigon here, it wouldn't really be serving much of a purpose. So we just got to kind of play this as best we can with what we have. So I already have Poliwell and Poliwrath, so the easy choice here is to build straight into Poliwag. We're Sabrina protected by having the second Bruxish. We just need to go for it. The only problem is that if they draw into Greninja and Frogadier early, which it looks like they kind of already have, we're in trouble. And obviously this would also be very bad for us if they manage to roll heads, but we just like plays Misty, and Misty does what Misty does, which is Tails like 80% of the time. So 1 into Articuno, you know, that's fine. So I went for the Misty into Poliwell, which of course hit Tails because why wouldn't it? So I'm just going to feed more energy into Poliwell, get my second Poliwag down and end a turn. Articuno is going to be doing 40 damage next turn, unless of course they Misty and maybe get a Blizzard going. But that is not the end of the world unless I have a Giovanni. So we're just kind of praying they get Tails again. And of course they do because it's Misty, man. Second energy into Articuno, and they also get the Greninja now, which is a little bit spooky because that means that they're going to start chipping down my Poliwrath, which isn't very optimal for me because Articuno doing 80 plus the chip of Greninja is going to take my Poliwrath out pretty quickly. So I go for the Misty into Bruxish here because if I can get that, we get a free retreat, which means I can get Poliwrath on. So we do, and we hit 3 energies. I thought it was 2. We hit 3 energies, which was peak. Now I can get my Bruxish off field. It's still ready to come in and attack the following turn, and we get Poliwrath down hitting Articuno. And if Articuno does hit me, we activate counter attack. So we're doing 100 damage to Articuno this turn, and it puts them in a really nefarious position. All I need to get the win after Articuno goes down is just 1 more point. But as predicted, my opponent puts the 20 into Poliwrath and also goes for the Blizzard. I think they probably should have put the 20 into my 50 HP Bruxish because between Blizzard and 2 counterattacks, they could have actually taken out my bench Bruxish pretty quickly. Because what they're thinking is that they can put on Froakie if Articuno goes down, which it will. And they can use Shuriken and Froakie to take out my Poliwrath. But the thing is, Froakie is then going to take damage, which means Bruxish comes in and finishes it and wins me the game. So they go for the Water Shuriken and the Poliwrath, and they get the kill with the Froakie. But that is the game. So 07s to Poliwrath. Poliwrath has gone down, but the win is here. Another deck taken down by the rough skin counterattack Wombo. To be fair, Druddigon didn't even come into this game. So this was purely done with Poliwrath and Bruxish. So you can see that Poliwrath is actually quite useful. It can fill the rough skin void, plus it does good damage, has good HP. It's a pretty solid mon. So this is another game against a Hitmonlee deck. They are also running Mew, so a slightly different variant to the last one, but I do expect this is probably Hitmonlee, Mew, and Marshadow. And the one thing that I've kind of learned is usually not to put mons on your bench against this deck. But the thing that I'm thinking here is that Bruxish takes 3 turns to kill with Hitmonlee. And Poliwag, we already have Poliwell and Poliwrath. So I'm feeling like I can actually bait this. And while I'm baiting this, I'm going to set up my Druddigon. Because they'll be so focused on trying to kill my bench mons that I can actually use this to my advantage strategically to set up Druddigon. Because again, I think Druddigon is actually pretty cool against Hitmonlee if you're running multi-energy and you can actually get it going. So straight away, they decide to energy into Mew and then bring Hitmonlee on, which tells me that my bait has actually worked. The honey trap is working. Just call me Victory Bell because they're falling for it. So straight away, we get our energies into Druddy. I'm going for the Misty Hail Mary because if we can pull this off, that'd be great. And we do get 2 energies, not the 3 we need, but that's pretty sweet for us because we have Poliwrath ready to go. So this is pretty optimal. Probably like the perfect start, I would say, to any game. The only thing we're missing is some supporter support in like your Leafs and your Sabrinas, but this is a pretty great start. So straight away, like even if this Hitmonlee attacks me next turn, I take him out with Druddigon. That's fine. And our friend here hasn't got any energies into their Marshadow. So I think what I would have done if I was them is knowing that I can't take out Mew in the first instance. The misplay they made was getting so baited into trying to kill my Poliwag that they put Hitmonlee on quickly. But realistically, Mew could have stayed on field, tanked this hit. They would have had, at that point, they would have had Marshadow set up with 1 energy, plus Hitmonlee set up with 1 energy. They could have retreated in the Hitmonlee if they really wanted to get the Marshadow proc, and they could have had more of a play by bringing Marshadow into the game. But what they've done instead is put themselves on the back foot. I have the complete advantage. They can't really do anything to me because I'm going to hit this Mew with 90 damage next turn. And if they switch out, what are they going to switch into? Hitmonlee, Marshadow, they can't do anything. So this is pretty much a locked game already as far as I can tell. Like it was hard for me to even see a lose con here. I don't even need to feed my energies into Poliwrath. So we're just going to get damage down into Mew, put it in their court and see what they'll do. Because of that early misplay of being so desperate to get Hitmonlee on, because I presented them a Poliwag with 60 HP, which looked like an easy 2-turn kill, while Druddigon was just on the field, unable to do anything. Unluckily for them, I had my Poliwell already, so I did that with the mind of being bait intentionally. All the while, I can set up my Druddigon because I have a multi-energy deck going, and Druddigon is not just a meat shield in this deck. And it works, and it gets you the wins. So I definitely recommend if you run this deck, or a deck that has a low energy cost, running multi-energy for Druddigon is actually really good. And that is one of the reasons why the Tricolor Pidgeot deck is also powerful. So I think Druddigon is slept on as an actual usable card. 90 damage is a lot of damage.
What's up, guys? It's me, Mochi. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can eat.